Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the workshop today. Don't fear the resume. My name is Julia Beyer. I'm a School of Communication career advisor, and I'm here to chat with you today about resume tips. We are gearing this workshop towards first-year students, but if there are other students on the call, you can definitely pick up some tips for yourself as well. And if you are seeking a resume critique for your own resume, I would strongly recommend making an appointment with your career advisor so that they can go over your document one-on-one to make sure that you're targeting it appropriately for the kinds of opportunities that you are applying for. And so I'm just going to back out of this and move to our website. So you can get to our website at american.edu/career center, and you'll find all kinds of tips here. I hope some of you went to our career fair last week. We had 118 employers. It was a very exciting in-person event. But to find resume templates, I wanted to show you under prepare for the search, and resumes and CVs is where you can click to find our resume templates. And I'm scrolling down to them here. And I was going to show the first and second year template, but then you can also look at the upperclassman template. You can also look at the graduate student template and on. But for the purposes of this workshop tonight, I'm going to be going over the first and second year undergraduate student template, but I wanted to show you where that was located on our website so that you can go ahead and download that. So, and feel free, I'm going to pause, of course, for questions, but feel free to just put any questions in the chat while I'm talking, and then I will get to them as we go along or when I'm ready for a pause. So we'll just see how it works best. Okay, so for those that are on the Zoom call right now, can anyone tell me, put in the chat, how many pages a resume should be? If you could just put it in the chat right now. Thank you, Melanie. One page. Somebody guessed two. 1 page. For all undergraduate students, you really need 1 page. You shouldn't go beyond that. And so this is actually very timely because I've been working with a lot of first year students who are in the SPA leadership program because they need to have an updated resume in that program. So I've been looking at quite a lot of resumes that were designed to get into college, which is a very different thing from when you're designing your resume to apply for jobs and internships. So when you're designing your resume to apply for jobs and internships, you really want to list just the most important things on the resume. So what do I mean by most important things? I mean, what is most relevant and what is most meaningful to you? And then thirdly, what is most recent? So most students don't have a big issue with things going 5-10 years back. That's usually not an issue. But when I say most recent, I usually am referring to in the past 2 to 3 years. But most students, I think, have like 1 to 2 years back of experience on their resume. So prioritizing what's recent, meaningful, and relevant. So it really does help to know what you're using the resume for, what positions you're applying for, to be able to identify what information to include on it. So the other thing to think about the resume is recruiters spend about 6 seconds on the resume. That is very little time to spend on your material. And what we're looking at right here in this sample, and this first page is just the format of what it looks like. And then the second page is the actual wording. But how many pages are we going with? One. So one at the end of the day, we're going to have one page. But in this sample, it shows you the format and then the actual sample wording. And what we see here on the screen is what somebody would be viewing in 6 seconds, because you can't assume that they're going to be scrolling all the way down to the bottom. So that's why I say what is on the top of the resume is what's most important. It's what I call the prime real estate on the resume. So you really have to make sure that you're very strategic about what you put on the top of the resume, because it can't, again, you can't assume people are going to scroll all the way to the bottom. So let's just review a little bit about the sections. I know in this sample, we have relevant courses and projects. Now, if you're a first or second year student, you may not be ready to list that yet. That's more when you get into your major and you have relevant projects or courses to list, you can do so. And these would be projects that would be more substantive, like a capstone or a big research project, you know, selectively listing the most important projects on your resume, because employers are really not going to want to look through a long list of those. So making sure that in your education section, you have American University, the school at American University that you are in, spelling out your degree name. Don't just list your major, actually spell out BA or Bachelor's of Arts to make sure that the person who's reviewing your resume understands the actual degree that you are pursuing. And then you could potentially have an honors section. You don't absolutely have to list GPA. Of course, this GPA looks very good. We defined a good GPA by being 3.5 or above. That's a very, very good GPA. But if you're a 3.4, go ahead and list your GPA, or 3.3. So like I said, you don't absolutely have to list your GPA, but if it's something that you're proud of and you want to display, you work really hard for that GPA, feel free to list that. So when you're a first, second year student, your high school will be there on your resume. I usually say by junior or senior year, your high school can come off, but definitely as a first year student, it should be on there still, because I sometimes get the question, should I still have high school stuff on my resume? Well, of course, if you're a first year student, you're going to still have a lot of high school activities and clubs and or jobs on your resume. So by all means, still have it on your resume. But of course, as you progress through college, the more experience you have in college and clubs and activities and internships, et cetera, the more the high school stuff will fall off. So the next section here is experience. And what I wanted to clarify about the experience section is this does not have to be strictly work experience, because as you can see in this sample, this person has included volunteer roles. This person has included clubs and activities, as well as paid jobs that they have held. So when you label a section experience, that's a very broad term and can encapsulate all kinds of experiences, not just paid jobs or jobs directly relevant to your major. But it is possible, like in this example here, to break up your experience into different sections if you like. So as in this example, you have experience, and then you have campus and community service. So what is the point to doing that? Well, sometimes people want to group their experiences differently so that they can highlight the more relevant things at the top. So other ideas of sections could include relevant experience and other experience, so that you can select the most relevant things on your resume and group it all together for the very top so that employers can quickly see what is the most relevant things for me to know about this person. And so that you have done the work for the employer to weed through your experiences and all the things that you've done and thought through all the most relevant things to share. So you definitely want to be very strategic about how you're grouping your experiences, the sections that you're naming your experiences. There's no rule about you have to have the section names experience in campus and community service. I've seen research experience, I've seen leadership experience, or if you just wanted something very broad, relevant experience can kind of capture a lot of things together. So that's just a little bit about that. And then getting down to the skills section, what I strongly recommend, as you see, this is a very short, concise section. Keeping it limited to hard skills is really important. By hard skills, I mean skills that are measurable. I can measure your proficiency in a language. I can measure your proficiency in a technical tool. What I can't measure so easily is your interpersonal skills and your leadership skills. So I really encourage students to leave out the soft skills in the skills section, like interpersonal, communication, leadership. Leave out those soft skills. And it's better to instead, through your descriptions, demonstrate those soft skills. If you led a club or activity, or if you were dealing with customers, to demonstrate the communication skill set. So that's just a little bit about each of the sections. I'm just going to look in the Q&A so far if there has any questions so far. I don't see any so far. Feel free to type any questions you have. Okay, so I just wanted to cover some more things about the wording and the descriptions. It's very important to have action verbs in your resume. Of course, you're not writing your descriptions in full sentences, and you're also not using pronouns within the descriptions. You can put pronouns next to your name at the top, but you do not use I or me or they within the job descriptions. Another thing to think about is adding numbers when you can, such as to develop materials and delivered presentations to 20 student volunteers. You don't have to add numbers to everything. It's really where it might enhance or demonstrate what you were doing. Like if you presented to 2 people, that wouldn't be so much as 20. So 20 is a pretty impressive number. So adding numbers where it makes sense, where it really demonstrates like how much you were doing. And another thing to think about is outcomes of your tasks besides numbers. So, you know, if you're managing a social media account, maybe you're tracking the data using Google Analytics, and you're seeing the traffic to the website, the number of likes to your page, or some way to track the information that you are for you managing the social media accounts. So if there's an outcome, you fundraise X amount of money, you increase staff by X percent, you know, any outcome like that could be something good to share on the resume. Okay. I would always also suggest that you have somebody else review your resume, whether it's your career advisor, your roommate, a family member, or a friend, just because no matter how many times you look at it yourself and think it's great, there's could be something missing. So you always need another set of eyes to review it, just to make sure there's no spelling errors, there are no grammar errors, and there's just sometimes, you know, you look at something over and over again, and it's so easy to miss because we're all human at the end of the day. So that's why it's good to talk to people, have other people look at your resume. And sometimes even you get different bits of advice from different people. And sometimes the advice can conflict. Like one person might say, add this to the resume. Another person might say, no, you shouldn't add that at all. Such as maybe the computer skills, right? Some people might say, why would you add Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint? Don't people automatically assume that you have that skill? Well, not necessarily. And also another reason is there's something called the application tracking system, ATS. There are software programs company use to collect resumes. And when recruiters go into those databases and type Excel, because they're looking for candidates who have that skill set for a job. And if your resume does not come up because you do not have Excel spelled out on your resume, then your resume won't even be considered. So it is really important to include keywords in your resume. So I noticed there are a couple questions, so I will pause. Melanie's asking, is it better to put our home address or school address if interested in internships in DC? Excellent question, Melanie. What I would say is no address. No address, because everybody has American University on the resume at the very top. So employers see that you're at AU in Washington, DC. So if you're applying to opportunities in DC, there's no reason to write any address. Now, the exception to that is when you're applying to an organization outside the DC area, and that job is hybrid or in person, so requiring you to come into the office at some point in person, and it's not clear that you're there, but you have family there and you have a place to stay, so you could be local, readily available to work that job, that's when you might want to put an address. So you put addresses on resumes when it's important to clarify to the employer where you're physically located. Of course, if it's a remote job or internship, then that doesn't matter. So then don't worry about it. But I hope that answered your question okay, Melanie. So somebody asked, if you're promoted at the same company, should you mention both individual jobs or only the more impressive title? Thank you. I'm constantly helping students eliminate redundancy, listing the same employer twice. I strongly encourage you to list the employer once, and then you have the most recent role, and then the role after that. And when somebody is quickly skimming your resume, spending those 6 seconds is much easier to pick up, wow, that person got a promotion, they got more responsibility. They can understand that really quickly, instead of making the mistake if you list the same company twice, but it looks like 2 separate jobs. They might think, oh, they had 2 separate jobs, if they're not carefully looking at your resume, which is a mistake I make all the time. So if I'm making that mistake, because I'm looking at so many resumes, you know, recruiters are making that mistake. So I think you should list the company once. And then if you had a couple different positions there, the most recent one, and then the next one, etc. So that's a great question. So thanks for asking that. So somebody else asked, is it better to say Excel or Microsoft Office? So just like the example I was just sharing, Excel, mention the specific programs. If somebody is looking for that skill set of Excel, you want that word to be on the resume. So make sure that you actually list all the programs. Can you kindly share a link of the platform we can use to see the rating of a resume in order to learn how much to amend the keywords? I'm not sure what that platform is. A link of the platform we can use to see the rating of your resume. I mean, there's lots of tools out there. You know, I think LinkedIn has this where they can review your resume. But we can do that. We can work with you one-on-one and look at the job that you're applying for and making sure that you are targeting your resume appropriately for that. So what those automated systems might do is like see how much those keywords are matching the job description. But what a human can do is really make sure you're positioning your experiences correctly on the resume, that you articulated your experiences well enough, and that you're making sure that it's clear as much as possible why you're qualified for that job. So that goes a step beyond what something automatic can do for you along those lines. Okay, so there's something else I wanted to share with you, which is what we call competencies. So all employers are looking for these competencies when they're recruiting for different roles. We have career and self-development. We have communication. We have critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, technology, teamwork, and professionalism. And I know some internships or jobs have robust descriptions, and it's clear what they're looking for, you know, as far as skills and qualifications. But then there's other internships that are very vague and sparse and have like a bare bones description, and you sort of have to guesstimate what kinds of skills that they're looking for. So I wanted to show you this because, which is also on the Career Center website, because you can keep these skills in mind as you're drafting your materials, because all employers are going to be looking for these competencies. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of those. That's the bottom half again. And then another thing I have here is sample descriptions for common student experiences. So frequently, first-year incoming students come in with waiting or hosting experience, receiving the Eagle Scout Award, lifeguarding. And these are good, strong descriptions. If you're an athlete, if you worked at Starbucks, these are very strong descriptions to help you make sure that you are articulating what you did there in the best way you can. And that's also what we can do as career advisors, is help you develop the language and have those strong action verbs to make sure you are writing the best descriptions you can for your experiences. So I'm not going to obviously go walk through every single one of these. This just gives you sort of a different ideas of some of these descriptions, which I can share with you also after the webinar. The other thing I wanted to share with you, some of these descriptions are quite lengthy, like for summer camp counselor. And so the length of the descriptions can really vary. You don't have to have a certain length. You don't have to have like 3 bullets for every single job. You can have longer descriptions for things that are more relevant. You can have shorter descriptions for things that are less relevant. And you can even have no description if you just wanted to list Sunday school's teacher, the location, the date, just to sort of have the experience on there. If you want to have it on there, but you don't want to take up the space to describe it, because we have to keep the resume to a page. So some people have to make that difficult decision, make that judgment call of what to keep on and what to take off. And I get the question from students like, what do you think I should keep on? And I'm like, I can't make that call because I haven't walked in your shoes and lived your life and know which experiences were most meaningful to you and which you developed transferable skills. So I just share with you what to keep in mind when you're thinking through the process of what is important to include on that document. And of course, knowing what you're applying for can help tremendously help you narrow that down. And the other suggestion I can make is you can have a master resume with every experience you've ever had, and then you can pick and choose to target to different roles you're applying for, so that you make sure that the things that you list on your resume excuse me, are the most relevant things that you want employers to view. Does anyone have any more questions? We're almost at the half-hour mark. Does anyone have any more questions about the resume? I do want to spend a little time on also LinkedIn, because the resume and LinkedIn go hand in hand. Excuse me. And LinkedIn is such a powerful platform, and it's very important from even first, second year of college to start thinking about building a LinkedIn profile. So if no one else has a question about resume, we're going to shift to LinkedIn. Okay, so let me pull up LinkedIn here. Okay, so this is something I share, and I'll even put this in the chat right now because it's a link. This is something I share with every single student building a LinkedIn profile, lots of first-year students, along with looking at their resume. So LinkedIn, like I said, really complements what you're doing with your resume, but it's even more powerful because this is public and anybody can look you up, your LinkedIn profile, and see what your work history is, whereas you're not really, not everybody can look up your resume in the same way, right? Because you're probably not posting it publicly. So what's really important about the LinkedIn profile is it goes a step beyond the resume, because the resume, you're talking about your experiences, you're describing them, hopefully in using strong language and action verbs. But in the LinkedIn profile, you can actually show people samples of your work, because in addition to listing your experiences, you can also link to a presentation or a project that you worked on. So somebody can click open and see a paper that you wrote, or a presentation, or a video. So it's really, really good because it kind of takes it a step further. And I wanted to highlight 3 areas of LinkedIn that are really important. One is under your name, this is the professional headline. And we want that to be specific, not just student at American University, because I see a lot of students over the years saying student at American University, and that is not specific enough. We need you to write your major at the minimum, so that when employers are looking at your profile, they at least have some understanding of what you're studying, right? And even better, if you can give them an idea of what you potentially might be interested in doing, which you could put in the headline. Or some people put skill sets in that headline and or interest areas. Some people put their job title in the headline. It kind of defaults to your job title, but you do not have to keep it to your job title in your headline. So having a targeted headline, kind of thinking about who is your audience, who are you trying to appeal to, and being very strategic about what keywords you're putting there. The second thing is the photo headshot, which we typically do not recommend for the resume. There are some creative style resumes, because I work with communication students, where they do put photos on there, but that's for broadcast journalism majors and for opportunities that are more creative, if they're using some graphics and color on the resume. So those resume styles are limited to creative companies and creative roles like graphic design and marketing, advertising, marketing, that kind of field. But for most of the rest of you, you'll be sticking with the plain version of your resume, which I showed before with the sample. So having a professional photo, I mean, it doesn't have to be a professional photographer taking this photo. You could just ask a friend or a roommate to take a picture of you outside, maybe in natural lighting, so we can see you well, with a smile on your face, some approachable expression. So having a photo is important because your profile is viewed more highly when you have a photo there. And then the third part, besides professional headline photo, is summary, which it's now called the about section, but it's literally like an elevator pitch. And if you don't know what that is, it's just a very brief introduction of yourself. So you're just saying a little bit about your past, what you're currently doing, and what you hope to do in the future in a very brief way. So when a recruiter comes to your page, they're trying to understand, okay, David, he did this, he's going there, he's done that. And so the elevator pitch, excuse me, really helps to clarify a little bit about your background and who you are. So it kind of helps to connect the dots for the recruiter viewing your profile. There's many other sections to LinkedIn, not just strictly work experience, which it doesn't have to be limited to work experience. Excuse me. There's also volunteer experience. There's also honors awards. There's courses. There's projects. There's lots of other sections to add there. So as a first year, second year student, do not feel overwhelmed by LinkedIn. You just are starting to build it up because I presented to a class once of seniors, and I said, you need to, think about what samples you want to put on your profile, what work samples. And somebody said to me, oh, I wish I knew that from senior year, because then I could have been keeping from freshman year. So I could have been keeping track of my samples that I want to share on my LinkedIn profile. So knowing about this, the earlier, the better, so that you can think strategically what samples you might want to add to your profile to demonstrate any of the skills that you are building through your classes, through your internships, through your clubs and activities. This is really important part of your building your online brand. And there's many social platforms out there, but I'm focusing on this one because this is really strictly professional, and this is the one that recruiters pay the most attention to. So really, really important. 90% of recruiters, are using LinkedIn, really probably even higher than that, to source candidates, to review their background information, to gather any information they might not have, additional information they might not have included in their application. Like if we're limited to a page on the resume, guess where the extra information can go. The information that doesn't fit on the one-page resume can be included on the LinkedIn profile. Now, that being said, you don't want this profile to get too long. You do want to curate the profile also. You don't want to just use it to be a placeholder for all the experiences that don't fit on that one-page resume. So you do want to curate it also and be strategic about what is at the top of the profile and what people see first there as well. But it's also really, really important to sort of, as you're building your resume, also be building your LinkedIn profile. Does anyone have any questions about LinkedIn? I don't know if any of you thought I'd be covering that tonight. Surprise. Okay. So that is the one other thing that LinkedIn can do that a resume cannot is recommendations. You can ask for recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. So a couple rules about that. Obviously, the person that you're asking to recommend you on LinkedIn has to be on LinkedIn, and they have to be directly connected to you. But other than that, you are in full control of approving a recommendation and of it going up on your profile. So you can make sure that you curate those recommendations too. And the good thing about that is that, it's there, it's preserved, and even if it kind of gets dated, there still is a testament there to your character, your work ethic, and it kind of warms up the profile because it's really the only place on the profile where your personality can come a little bit through when other people are talking about who you are and how you are as a team member. And by the way, when you're asking, as it says here, you can ask managers, you can ask professors, you can ask classmates. I think of the 360-degree recommendation where you're asking somebody who's, managed you, somebody you work with, somebody you supervise, to sort of get that well-rounded perspective on who you are and how you are in the workplace. So I strongly recommend that you create and build the profile using this resource as you're building your resume, because it really, really complements your resume. Okay. So I think that's about all that I have for the moment, but I just wanted to encourage you again to make an appointment with your career advisor to get feedback about your resume. And if you don't already know, I'm pulling this up here. We do offer in-person as well as Zoom appointments, and our appointments are half an hour or an hour long. So if you think you need a little bit more time to review your resume, go ahead and book an hour. And we are located on the 5th floor in Butler Pavilion. So that's actually 2 levels above the campus store. Most people know where the campus store is on campus. And so, yeah, we are offering in-person appointments as well. And so it's up to you whether you want to meet with us in person or virtual. We just try to make ourselves as accessible to you as we possibly can. And, you're free to follow up with any email or any other questions, or schedule an appointment. And with the one-on-one appointments, of course, you get a lot more in-depth advice about your specific situation. So I got another question. Does it matter who we schedule with? Do we need to meet with someone specific related to your major? Yes. When you log onto Handshake, that should direct you to who you can select to meet with. It is based on your school. We are broken up by school-specific advising. So yeah, you schedule it on Handshake. If you do not want to schedule it on Handshake, you can email us or call us at this number as I have displayed. But I strongly encourage you to get familiar with Handshake, because that's where all our events are. That's where all the jobs are being posted. Actually, I can bring up Handshake here. And one thing I want to highlight, just maybe 2 things about Handshake, is really important for you to fill out your career interest section. What I just clicked on right under my initials here, if you click on that and then click on career interests, here's where you're filling out all your preferences for what kinds of jobs you're interested in. And I'm bringing this up because the algorithm and Handshake bases that the information off of this section on your handshake profile. So really, really important that you have this updated and accurate, because as you're job searching on Handshake, what pops up is driven by what you fill out here. And then the other section is, of course, your profile, which I would encourage you to, this is my fake profile here, but I would encourage you to have as close to 100% complete profile here. And to do that, all you need to do is have a little bit of information in each section. You don't have to put like everything on your resume in here, but like if you put a little bit of information in each section, this can get up to 100% complete profile. And I harp on that because employers sometimes go into Handshake and invite students to events based on students who have complete profiles. So if you don't have a complete profile, an employer may not invite you to an event. So that's why I emphasize that. And then of course we have the section for jobs here, where I said the algorithm based on that career interest section drives this listing of jobs, and you can select other filters, even for paid roles there. Best way to search this is by keyword. And then of course, all the events that we have coming up throughout the year, career development ones like this one, Don't Fear the Resume, but also lots of employer events, employers coming to campus. So important to be familiar with. Oh, by the way, I'll just demonstrate right here how to set up an appointment. So you go to the Career Center and then you click on appointments here. So in the middle of the page. So that's where you go to schedule an appointment there. And mine looks kind of funny because I'm not really a student. So that doesn't look quite accurate. But the other thing I wanted to show you real quick is resources. Resources is, like it says here, a resource library of tools to help you prepare for the job search, whether it's practicing interviews or understanding what kinds of career paths that your major leads to, connecting with alumni. In addition to alumni, you can connect with on LinkedIn. So there's all kinds of resources here you can look at to help you with the job search overall, other career resources. So I know I went way off topic here, but I just, those few things came to mind as other helpful resources that could help you as a first or second year student, if that's what you are. Are there any other questions? I'll just give you another minute. I am putting in the chat the common student experiences that I pulled up a few minutes ago, and it's a PDF. So hope you can open that before we close the Zoom and look at the competencies that I talked about, and keeping that in mind when you're writing your materials, and the sample list of common student experiences when students are first coming to AU, to help you build your descriptions to make sure they're strong and well worded. Okay, so I didn't see any other questions for the last couple minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. It's 6:45. You got 15 free minutes. And I thank you so much for coming tonight. And I hope you all have a great evening, have a great semester, and feel free to make an appointment with us. We're here to help and support you. Take care.